Abundance is one of the most misunderstood ideas in both religion and manifestation. Most people think abundance is something that happens to you, a blessing, a reward, a stroke of luck, something external that finally arrives after enough effort, suffering, or prayer. And because of that belief, abundance always feels just out of reach. Something you're moving toward, but never quite living inside. But the Bible never presents abundance as an event. It presents it as a condition, a state of being, something that flows naturally once identity is aligned. This is why so many people pray for abundance and experience the opposite. Because prayer, as it's commonly practiced, reinforces lack. It says, "I am not the one who has." And reality listens very carefully to identity. Scripture is blunt about this, even if we've been taught to soften it. Those who have, more shall be given. Not those who ask, not those who deserve, those who have. In other words, those who occupy the state of abundance experience expansion. Those who occupy the state of lack experience contraction, not as punishment, but as reinforcement. Reality multiplies whatever state you are being faithful to. This is uncomfortable for people because it removes the illusion that abundance is moral. It's not. It's mechanical. It's lawful. It operates the same way gravity does. You don't argue with it. You don't negotiate with it. You align with it, or you don't. Abundance, in the biblical sense, was never about money alone. It was about sufficiency, without anxiety, provision, without strain, flow, without force. Jesus never glorified struggle. He never praised scarcity. He spoke calmly about provision as something natural, even obvious. Consider the lilies. They don't hustle, they don't strategize, they don't pray harder. They are aligned with their nature, and nature provides for what fits. This is where abundance breaks down for most people. They try to add abundance to an identity that contradicts it. They want wealth, but they see themselves as someone who survives. They want overflow, but they identify as someone who barely gets by. They want freedom, but they still think like someone waiting for permission. And abundance cannot land in a container that denies it. This is why hoarding never creates wealth, why fear-based saving never leads to freedom, why chasing money feels exhausting. Because money, like everything else, responds to state. It moves towards certainty and away from desperation, toward expectation and away from need. The Bible never instructs you to chase provision. It instructs you to seek alignment. Seek first the kingdom, not heaven, not morality. The kingdom, authority, order, identity, and all these things shall be added automatically, without strain. That verse alone dismantles hustle theology, prosperity gospel, and poverty theology all at once, because it says abundance is a byproduct, not a goal. It arrives when something else is already in place. This is also why generosity works, not as charity, but as identity reinforcement. Giving from lack creates resentment. Giving from abundance reinforces abundance. One multiplies scarcity. The other multiplies flow. The act itself isn't magic. The state behind it is. And this is where people get confused. They try to act abundant to trick reality. But reality isn't fooled by behavior. It responds to coherence. If the action and the inner state disagree, the inner state wins. Abundance is quiet. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't constantly check the bank account. It doesn't need reassurance. It expects continuity. Expectation is the signature of abundance. This is why Jesus could feed thousands without drama. There was no ceremony around lack, no emotional buildup, no begging God to multiply loaves. Just calm assumption. Matter follows consciousness. Modern language calls this mindset. Scripture calls it faith. Physics calls it state. Different words, same mechanism. And once you see that, you realize why so many people sabotage abundance the moment it appears. Because abundance threatens identity. If you've lived as the struggler, the survivor, the one who gets by, then abundance feels unsafe. It destabilizes the story. So the system self-corrects. Lost money, unexpected expenses, bad decisions, until identity feels familiar again. Not because you're broken, because identity seeks consistency. The Bible hints at this again and again. The Israelites wandering the desert weren't blocked from abundance by geography. They were blocked by identity. Slavery thinking can't hold freedom. Scarcity thinking can't hold overflow. Even when provision shows up, it's wasted, feared, or rejected. This is why abundance work is not about affirmations. It's about dismantling the identity that feels comfortable with lack. Ask yourself this honestly. Who would I be if abundance were normal? How would I decide? How would I speak? What would I stop tolerating? What would I no longer justify? Those questions are dangerous because abundance isn't just money. It's self-respect. It's boundaries. It's choice. It's the quiet confidence that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. And that's why abundance is resisted by people and institutions alike. Because an abundant person is not controllable. They don't beg. They don't cling. They don't comply out of fear. The Bible's abundance teachings were never meant to create dependency. They were meant to restore authorship. I have come that they may have life and have it more abundantly. Not later, not after death, not once they're approved. Life, now, fully expressed. Once you stop treating abundance as something to earn and start treating it as something to embody, everything changes. You stop chasing. You stop forcing. You stop explaining. You start aligning. And alignment produces evidence. Abundance doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, predictably, inevitably. Because inevitability is the mark of identity. When you stop asking whether abundance is possible and start asking whether lack still defines you, the question answers itself.